Would you please join me in the salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you haven't had time yet, please sign the register in the back of the room. Also, if you wouldn't mind silencing your cell phones, we'd appreciate it. Roll call of the board.
Ms. Dong?
Here.
Mr. Hernandez? Mr. Jaramillo?
Here.
Ms. Quintero?
Here.
Mr. Crouch?
Present. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Dong?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Next on the agenda is board comments. Ms. Dunn.
Yes, I just want to talk about a couple of real quick things that kind of go together. The first one was a really nice celebration that we had at Sierra Middle School with the parents as teachers in a group, the organization. We'll hear a little bit more about them, but I think it was really neat to see so many little kids. They're so cute coming up and receiving their promotion, I guess, or from the parents as teachers. But seeing so many parents, so many grandparents, just shows how the community realizes the importance of education and how grateful they are that we have people coming to their homes and working with the parents and grandparents on with their child and making sure that everything works well with their child. So I thought that was a really, really incredible celebration. And then the very next day, we were able to go to the University of Arizona and see the College Academy of Parents, where we had a lot of parents coming to that facility to the U of A also. And they graduated from the College Academy of Parents, where they have also been able to work with the U of A on different strategies of how to make sure that their child gets to college. I think it's imperative that we start with the little ones in the parents as teachers, but we also continue to assist them and to make sure that we're there for them. With the College Academy of Parents, we make sure that we are still supporting them, not just when they're little babies and when they're 2 and 3 years old, but also as they continue on with their education, that we're there to support them. So I was very proud of the role that all of our staff have as far as those two occasions are concerned. I'm really proud of the community that has shown so much support for their children. Thank you.
Ms. Quintero.
I just want to thank all our staff as we go through all these ceremonies and awards programs. The staff works awful hard to make sure that everything is beautiful, and it's just like the Native American banquet was gorgeous, and everybody works so hard for everybody. All the students are like so cared for. Thank you, staff.
Mr. Jaramillo. There are so many events going on the last couple of weeks and the next few weeks. One of the highlights was the Crystal Apple Awards with Dr. Jeannie Favela getting the Lifetime Achievement Award. I think that was fantastic. We also had things like the Native American Seniors Awards Banquet, the dedication of the LRC to Carl Bruningkamp here at Desert View. The Future Cities program, very exciting. One bit of sad news is Harold Zellner, who was a bus driver here in the district in the 50s and 60s, maybe before that, and passed away this week. So condolences to his family. Next item on the agenda is Superintendent's Report. Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Crouch, members of the governing board, members of the audience. I'll go ahead and get started. So it's time to recognize some of the wonderful things that are happening here in our Sunnyside Unified School District. I'll start with Santa Clara Elementary School. Heidi Acosta, fourth grade student at Santa Clara Elementary School, was selected as a winner of the annual Goal 1 Graduate Meta Número Uno Graduarse poster contest. The poster theme promotes student graduation, and Heidi's creative artwork was selected as an elementary grade level winner, and Heidi was presented with a check for $100 and given special recognition at the 27th Annual Metropolitan Education Commission's Crystal Apple Award luncheon held on April 28th. You can see her poster there. I think there was her in front of a mirror, so that was a really nice poster. Great work from artwork from our students. We also have Sunnyside celebrates first Flynn Scholar. It's a great accomplishment. Cecil Aguirre, Desert View Senior, was named as a 2017 Flynn Scholar. The Flynn Scholarship covers the cost of tuition as well as room and board at one of the state's 3 public universities. It also provides funding for at least 2 study abroad experiences and an off-campus experience. The scholarship is valued at more than $115,000, and this is Desert View High School's first Flynn Scholar. So congratulations, Ms. Aguirre. Wonderful work. We also have on May 10th, which is tomorrow, we celebrate National School Nurses Day, which is always the Wednesday during National School Nurses Week. So we greatly appreciate our registered nurses who work tirelessly and every day to improve the health and learning of our students. Our nurses are true heroes to more than 16,000 students in the Sunnyside School District, so we thank you, nurses, for all that you do every day. We also appreciate our health clerks whose support for the nurses in their work. Pictured here is RN Regina Ramirez and Mary Weaverly from Sunnyside High School. Again, thank you, nurses and their assistants, because we couldn't do them without their support as well. Congratulations, another Desert View teacher, Hector Reyes, was named CTE Teacher of the Year for 2017. Mr. Reyes will be honored during the 42nd Annual Summer CTE Conference in July. He is being recognized for his dedication to his students and to the career and technical education in Arizona. Congratulations, Hector. Here we have a picture on May 2nd, 2017, the Law Enforcement Torch Run, which features Special Olympics Flame of Hope, ran through the district, stomping at Desert View High School. Law enforcement agencies across the world have committed to supporting Special Olympics by conducting fundraisers, volunteering, and carrying the flame of hope to raise awareness. So thank you, volunteers, for that wonderful work. We also had College Signing Day, not to be confused with athletic signing, but this is an opportunity to celebrate Desert View and Sunnyside High School seniors who actually were signing to college. So National College Signing Day also recognized where students will be entering the military. So both high schools celebrated with a pep assembly to recognize graduating seniors for this post-secondary plan. So again, military and college, and I believe earlier in the year we celebrated those who were actually signing formally for an athletic event as well. And here we have actually National Education Week, and today is actually our National Teacher Day. So congratulate all those teachers in the audience for all the wonderful work. On Tuesday, May 9th, National Teacher Day. So thank you very much. On this special day, we need to thank all the time that's dedicated and recognize our amazing teachers for all the incredible work. We sent a little bit of a thank you card in the video that actually was produced with some of our Sunnyside School students who were discussing kind of some remembering their teachers at different levels. So it was a nice video the kids did. So thank you, teachers, for all you do. Your hard work is very appreciated. We also had a great celebration to Elvira Elementary School, who received an A+. So congratulations to Elvira Elementary for earning the 2017 A+ School of Excellence Award. On April 28th, students, parents, community members, and district and site leaders joined Principal Andy Townsend and his staff to celebrate Elvira's prestigious award. Way to go, Elvira. We also had our Dollars for Scholars scholarship reception on April 26th. Sunnyside Alumni Association held its annual scholarship reception here at Desert View High School. Thanks to the generosity of those who contributed to this organization, the Alumni Association's Dollar for Scholars awarded a combined total of over $68,000 to 59 deserving Sunnyside District students. Congratulations, our Alumni Association and proud students there. The Sunnyside Neighborhood Association also held its the Association All-American Awards. It was held its 14th annual All-American Awards event at Apollo Middle School on Friday, Cinco de Mayo. Over 34 students recommended by their site leadership and teachers were honored for their contributions to their community, their schools, and their homes. Attendees enjoyed a sit-down dinner served by students, I think they're Apollo students, and catered by Sunnyside's Food Service Department under direction of Mr. Oakley. Prominent guests include Sheriff Mark Napier, Richard Fimbres, Ramon Valadez, representatives from the Office of Congressman Grijalva and Barbara Lawal. Students were presented and they actually presented certificates to all the students and honorees there that evening. So thank you for Sunnyside Neighborhood Association for those great recognition and awards. And then finally, we have Sunnyside Volunteers. Sunnyside High School students volunteered at the Kaboom Playground built at Kennedy Park. So students joined volunteers from Fiesta Bowl Charities and the Tucson Parks and Recreation Department to build a new playground in 7 hours. So that's where the Kaboom comes in, I guess. It's a national nonprofit organization dedicated to giving all kids and children what they deserve, life filled with balance and active play so they can thrive. So I believe there's a picture of the playground that was helped. So thank you, students, for contributing to this wonderful event as well. Thank you, Mr. Crouch. That concludes our superintendent's award.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Next on the agenda is call to the audience.
No. I'll say time.
On the call of the audience, the members of the audience can speak to the board for up to 3 minutes. The first person speaking is Curtis Duteau.
You didn't want to hear me anyway. Sing. I promise not to sing. I'm just here to present, since you came to our house on the day that our yearbooks are delivered. I thought I'd take an opportunity, and I was hoping the students could join me, but nobody could do it on short notice. Present Mr. Holmes with a copy in person of our yearbook. I'm really proud of it. Again, the cover and most of the page work, a lot of the photography was actually done by students, edited. It's his student-driven project. I'm really proud once again of the work the students have done and the opportunity that you guys gave me to work with some amazing, fun students. So I'm going to bring this up if it's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Duteau. Next is Mary Martinez.
Good evening, governing board members, President Crouch, Mr. Holmes, and audience members. My name is Mary Martinez, and I'm here representing the Sunnyside Education Association. Another school year has come and is almost gone. 12 more days with kids. Wow. I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to the governing board and district leadership for their continued support in improving our district, for our students, the community, and our employees. I just wanted to kind of, just come and say thank you, because I know our next board meeting is going to be really quick and short. So I wanted to say thank you because not just SCA, but I think our employees, we've really built a really strong relationship just in these 2 years, with the governing board, with district leadership, and I, at least as president of the Sunnyside Association, have really learned to have more respect, I think, for what everybody does, You know, I kind of, as a teacher, just know what I do as a teacher, but in just talking to governing board members, talking to district leadership, talking to all the wonderful people that work at Central, you don't realize everything that people do behind the scenes. You just look at what you do. So I found this to be a really year of learning for me and a year of growth, and I'm really proud to be a Sunnyside employee. So I just want to say thank you.
Next is Yolanda Herrera.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Holmes, board members, staff, and members of the audience. My name is Yolanda Herrera, Sunnyside Neighborhood Association President. I'd like to thank you, one of our greatest partners, the Sunnyside Unified School District, in their assistance in helping the Sunnyside Neighborhood Association's 24th Annual All-American Student Awards dinner held this past Friday at Apollo Middle School. Congratulations to all the students who were honored and recognized. Special thanks to all who made it a spectacular event. And as a community co-chair for the Unified Community Advisory Board, I would like to thank you for having Tucson Water present to you this evening so that we can make sure that we get the proper information, correct information out to the general public as they continue to deliver safe and clean water. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Before we get into that, I just wanted to make a quick announcement that our next board meeting will be at Sunnyside High School prior to the STAR graduation. So just wanted to let everyone know in case you want to make that board meeting as well. Ms. Quintero?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted, except to pull 3P1, policy revisions, JLCC, communicable diseases and infectious diseases to unfinished business.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved that we pass the consent agenda with the exception of item 3P1, policy revisions, JLCC. And seconded. Roll call.
Ms. Staub,
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo,
Yes.
Ms. Quintero,
Aye.
Mr. Crouch.
Aye. Motion passes. And we'll be taking that to unfinished business. We're just checking to see if
We are
have
looking
an
for
interpreter.
Maria Escalante. Is Maria Escalante here? She's our interpreter for this evening. Doesn't appear to be here. Okay.
I can't hear people like that. I couldn't hear Yolanda. I couldn't understand what she was saying.
She was saying things.
I figured pretty important.
¿Cuántos aquí necesitan interpretación aquí en la audiencia ahorita? Que necesitan la traducción de la presentación. No hay nadie aquí que necesita la traducción de la presentación. Quería asegurar, como no está la señora aquí, quería empezar la junta, pero asegurar que se podía entender lo que se estaba diciendo en inglés. Si necesita ayuda, podemos también poner un par de nuestros que están aquí, sentarse aquí atrás para poder interpretar con ustedes. Entonces, lo que puedo hacer es, los que hablan español de nuestros que trabajan con nosotros, que se pueden poner acá atrás y ayudar a la gente que necesita un poco de traducción. ¿Está bien así? Por favor. Doctora Favela, si le puede ayudar, y también la señora Gallegos puede ayudarles. Y ellos dos van a ir acá atrás, y si quieren sentarse ya de ellos se pueden ayudar a traducir la presentación. ¿Está bien? Ok, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a Tucson Water update. Mr. Holmes?
Yes, President Crouch, members of the governing board, I'd like to invite Mr. Biggs from Tucson Water to join us here at the podium. He's got a presentation update on Tucson Water, and I know as the governing board we'll have a series of questions that will help our audience also understand a little better what's going on with the water.
All right, thank you. Governing Board, Superintendent Holmes, I greatly appreciate the opportunity for me to come and talk to you about the history of the groundwater contamination on the south side with TCE and 1,4-dioxane. I want to talk a little bit about the history of TARP and 1,4-dioxane, the facility construction of the AOP that's remediating the 1,4-dioxane, some results from that treatment plant, and the next steps for EPA and Tucson Water in the community. So, as many of you are aware, in 1981, TCE, which is trichloroethylene, which is a solvent for degreasing parts, contamination was discovered by both EPA and Tucson Water in Tucson Airport area wells. 11 city wells were taken out of service at that time, and numerous private wells were also shut down. The following year, in 1982, EPA adds the TIAA site to its Superfund National Priorities List. And a National Priorities List is a list of hazardous waste sites eligible for long-term cleanup financed under the federal Superfund program. Fast forward a couple years to 1985, CERCLA, which is actually the Superfund program, they completed a remedial investigation. A remedial investigation is a mechanism for collecting data to really characterize the site conditions. And then with that remedial investigation, it really delineated the plume, which is hard to see on that screen, but the plume runs from, on the south, Los Reales Road, runs southeast to northwest. It ends just north of Irvington Road, on the east side about 6th Avenue, and on the west side, I-19 approximately. Again, it's about a mile wide and about 4 miles long in size. In 1988, CERCLA completed its feasibility study for Area A plume, which we are concerned about, the TARC plume. And again, a feasibility study is a mechanism that EPA utilizes for the development and detailed evaluation for remedial action, meaning what kind of treatment are they going to utilize to deal with that particular contaminant. And at that same time in 1988, the Environmental Protection Agency also issued a record of decision, or a ROD. A record of decision is really, it documents the cleanup remedy for that Superfund site. So it actually documents what treatment
will be used to clean up that particular contaminant. In 1990, whoops, wrong way. There we go. In 1990, the settling parties entered into a consent decree with EPA. A consent decree is an agreement or a settlement that implements that record of decision, or ROD. And the settling parties were the United States Air Force, McDonnell Douglas, Raytheon, which was formerly Hughes Aircraft, Tucson Airport Authority, and also the city of Tucson. Between 1991 and 1994, the treatment facility, the TARP treatment facility, the 9 remediation wells, and all the pipelines that connect the wells to the treatment plant were designed and constructed, and that cost of that facility, including the wells and pipelines, were just under $5 million in 1994. In November of 1994, the 9 remediation wells and what we call the packed column aeration facility, what we call TARP, became operational and has been running since November of 1994. 1 year later, EPA formed the EPA-sponsored Unified Community Advisory Board, which Yolanda spoke about just before. I can't tell you how important UCAB is to the city of Tucson and to the community. They have helped us immensely, and they have been invaluable as we continue to remediate the contaminated groundwater. So kudos to UCAB. We really appreciate them very much. So this map, again, it's very hard, you can't really see it on this screen, unfortunately. It's an area that shows where the water from the TARP treatment plant is delivered. I'll try to describe this a little bit, and I brought maps of this. If anyone would like a copy of it, I can hand those out at the end of the presentation. But this map is a V shape. The bottom of the V is approximately at I-10 and 29th Street. On the west side, the V goes up through along Silver Bell on the west side of I-10. And on the east, it goes up like First Avenue, Oracle. There's about 60,000 people that receive this water, and I want to make note that it's very, very important to the community that no one from the original contaminated area in Tucson has received this water since 1994. I want to make sure everyone understands that, because that's very important to the community and understanding how this system works. So to continue the history, in the spring of 2002, I received a phone call from EPA informing me that other like Superfund sites, that are very similar to the one in Tucson, was finding another contaminant called 1,4-dioxane. 1,4-dioxane is a stabilizing agent for TCA. TCA replaced TCE when it was banned as a degreasing agent. But unfortunately, they were using 1,4-dioxane as a stabilizing agent to make it work better. But again, there's consequences to everything you do. So immediately once we found that out, we began some routine monitoring, some laboratory testing of all the remediation wells, areas within the distribution system, and all the numerous monitoring wells that we have in the TARP Superfund site. In 2003, knowing that eventually we would most likely have to build a treatment plant to remediate 1,4-dioxane, we began a very high-level conceptual study of 1,4-dioxane treatment at TARP. Also in 2003, we began blending or diluting the water coming out of the TARP treatment plant. Even though it was meeting all drinking water standards for TCE, we wanted to make sure that it was also meeting health advisories from EPA. A drinking water health advisory is not enforceable. It's an advisory. But Tucson Water takes those drinking water health advisories as if they were enforceable. So once we knew that there was a health advisory at 3 parts per billion for 1,4-dioxane, we began diluting that water with uncontaminated water from our Southern Navajo Valley well field that does not have any 1,4-dioxane in it. And us folks in the water profession throw a lot of acronyms at people. So PBB is parts per billion, and I know you're going, I have no idea what that means. Think of it this way. I'm trying to compare a real-world comparison to what a part per billion is. So a part per billion compares to 1 penny and $10 million. Or another way of looking at it, 1 second in 32 years. Just like that. That's how small a part per billion is. So I want you to keep that in your mind as I walk through this presentation. And again, a drinking water health advisory is that just an advisory. It's not enforceable. So again, this shows the same V-shaped map. You really can't see it, but what's important on this map is that it does show the red dots. These are actually dedicated sampling points that Tucson Water uses for many of water quality constituents every year, whether it's weekly or monthly. The points that are within the V shape, those 8 points there that go up both sides of the V, we tested every month for 1,4-dioxane. There's also, and this is really important, the 3 points that are south of I-10 and I-19 interchange, that SP 860, well, it's testing my eyesight, 974 and 930, we specifically picked those sampling points and we sampled them every month to ensure that our customers who are living in the area that was the original contaminated area were receiving safe drinking water. Again, we tested these every month. We posted them on our website, and you can see some examples there. And we also then reported those information every quarter to UCAP throughout this whole time. So continuing on the history, in 2005, knowing that the blending capability that we had would eventually not be able to keep that 1,4-dioxane level below the 3 part per billion health advisory, we began looking at a contingency plan. And really a contingency plan is an operational strategy. It details steps to be taken to ensure water being delivered to our customers meet the current EPA drinking water health advisory. So what that means is 1,4-dioxane levels kept rising and we couldn't dilute enough water to keep the water quality below the drinking water health advisory, we would have to turn off one of the remediation wells. And we had to do that for numerous years until the advanced oxidation treatment plant was built. So that was the contingency plan. We were thinking ahead. We knew what we had to do to ensure public health and the water was safe to our customers. So in 2009, after talking with EPA, we knew that eventually, probably within the next year or two, EPA was going to lower the existing drinking water health advisory. And at the time, remember, it was 3 parts per billion. That's an important number to remember. So then in 2009, we started looking at more detailed evaluation of treatment technologies that would remove 1,4-dioxane. The next year, 2010, we actually began a pilot test. And what a pilot test is, you utilize different technologies in a very small scale, use the source water from TARP, the contaminated water, and run it through these treatment technologies, look at the results, compare the results to cost, and that cost can be long-term capital improvement or short-term annual O&M costs. So we had to look at all that information to determine what kind of treatment we wanted to use full scale. So as promised, EPA in 2010 published a revised toxicological evaluation for 1,4-dioxane in August of that year, which led to, in January of 2011, just a few months later, EPA, they published a new drinking water health advisory for 1,4-dioxane. Remember I mentioned it was at 3 parts per billion. They lowered it to 0.35 parts per billion. Okay, that's a huge drop. And I knew at that time we would not be able to continue to blend water to keep it below that 0.35 parts per billion. Now I want to describe or talk a little bit about this 0.35 parts per billion at 1 times 10 to the minus 6 excess lifetime cancer risk level. I want to put that in layman's terms, okay, so everyone can understand what that means. And what that means, a person would have to drink 2 liters of water, which is basically 8-ounce glasses of water, every day from that same source water for 70 years to have a 1 in 1 million chance of getting cancer. That's how conservative these drinking water standards are, and how careful we are in the water industry to ensure that the water we deliver to our customers is safe. So, I knew at that time that we would have to build a treatment plant, and that treatment plant was going to cost us, with a design, about $18 million. All right? I went to our mayor and council, we talked about what we needed to do, and they directed us to design and construct the advanced oxidation process treatment plant at a cost of about $18.1 million in capital funds. Tucson Water has an annual capital improvement project budget every year of anywhere between $55 to $65 million every year. And we prioritize projects with that money, whether it's new pipelines, new pump stations, new wells, whatever the case may be. What we had to do with that $18.1 million, we had to find something in that capital improvement program to delay so we could build this treatment plant. But we knew we had to do it before we got paid, because the United States Air Force had admitted in public that they caused this issue, and our council told us, build the plant ahead of time, get the money later. So that's what we did. So between 2011 and early 2014, we began design and construction of the treatment facility. And actually in January of 2014, the treatment plant was completed. Now this is an overview of what the treatment plants look like now, plural. This is the northwest corner of I-19 and Irvington Road. The existing TARP treatment plant there on the left, that's the treatment plant that's been there since November of 1994. To the right, that's enclosed in that yellow hashed square, is the new AOP treatment facility. There's a new building that houses treatment equipment, things like that. Up there, up on the top of the screen is the Santa Cruz River. To the right is facing north. To the left is facing south, Irvington Road. So, again, on January 15th, 2014, we had a ribbon cutting ceremony which officially started the treatment of 1,4-dioxane with our advanced oxidation process water treatment facility. It was a great day for the citizens of Tucson and Tucson Water customers. Yolanda Herrera was there. Others from UCAB were there. People from the United States Air Force, EPA, a lot of people attended the event. And it was like I said, a very great day for the citizens of Tucson and our customers. So moving forward, I want to talk a little bit about results from the treatment plant. First, I want to talk about this schematic. In the lower left are the 9 remediation wells that are strategically located within that plume, the TCE and 1,4-dioxane plume that I described earlier. Those 9 wells, the flow from those 9 wells remove contaminated groundwater. The south wells, they actually remove the contaminated groundwater. That's their main purpose. The north well field, which are there's 4 well fields around Irvington Road, just east of I-19. Those wells have 2 purposes. One, to keep the contaminated plume from moving north, but it also removes water and the contaminated groundwater. Okay, so that's the purpose of those 9 remediation wells. The flow from those 9 remediation wells, originally from 1994 until 2014, that water was delivered to the original TARP treatment plant, and that's on the lower part of this screen. The water would flow to the packed column aeration. As you drive by on I-19, just north of Irvington, look off to the west, you see 3 big stainless steel cylinders. That's the packed column aeration. What happens is the water goes to the top. Inside those tanks, how many of you when you were kids played baseball with wiffle balls? What was the holes in them? That's what's in those, basically. Kind of looks like that. That it's filled with plastic balls that allows the water to bounce off of it. Air is introduced from the bottom. The TCE is removed from the water through that aeration and that movement of water. The water continues through, cascades through that material, is pumped out and is disinfected, and then goes to the public. Okay, that was from 1994 to 2014. Now the vapor that comes off that water that's treated, it's heated and goes through granule activated carbon contactors there to the right, and then that carbon removes the TCE that was in the vapor. Okay? So then the vapor is allowed to be released into the atmosphere. And it all meets all EPA regulations, both for drinking water and for air emissions. So, in 2014, we began flowing all the water from those 9 remediation wells through the new AOP treatment plant first. Okay? So that water would flow towards the new plant. We would introduce hydrogen peroxide. We all use hydrogen peroxide at home. You know, when you have a cut, put it on there, it bubbles. This is a little bit stronger than that. I wouldn't recommend putting that on your skin. But it's a very important part of this treatment technology. Between the addition of hydrogen peroxide, which is a really strong oxidant, you know, it's an oxidizer, add that to the water, mixes, then the water immediately goes through these ultraviolet light reactors. That ultraviolet light, along with the hydrogen peroxide, pulls apart and destroys the 1,4-dioxane molecules. Okay? Then the water flows out with 1,4-dioxane removed, and TCE is removed also. That's an important point to remember. That water, which has extra hydrogen peroxide in it to make sure we remove the 1,4-dioxane, has to go through, again, granule activated carbon to remove that excess hydrogen peroxide. It comes out of that contactor, and then because of the consent decree that I talked about that everyone signed in 1990, the water must flow through the existing TARP treatment plant. But at this stage, that water is clean, okay, and safe to drink. But because of that consent decree, that water has to then flow through the pack column, the wiffle balls, and then it's delivered to the public. So that's how water is treated right now at the TARP AOP treatment facility. So, talk a little bit about the performance of this treatment plant. And I want to kind of explain this graph. So this chart is talking about the performance of the advanced oxidation process treatment plant for the removal of TCE. Okay, this is just a snapshot from December 2014 through end of March of this year. The solid red line that comes across that's equal to the 5, which is 5 parts per billion on the vertical left, that 5 parts per billion is an established Safe Drinking Water Act maximum contaminant level that every drinking water utility must meet. It's enforceable, and that's at 5 parts per billion. Now our consent decree has a lower limit of 1.5 parts per billion, and that's indicated by the longer dashed lines that's below there. So that's 1.5 parts per billion. The smaller hash line at the bottom is what we call a method reporting limit of our analytical method, which means we cannot detect below 0.5 parts per billion with our analytical method. So what this graph tells us is that, remember I talked about we have 2 different well fields, the north well field and the south well field. On the far left of the graph, it shows 10 parts per million. That's the combined water from the 4 north well fields as far as TCE concentration. The next bar in is 12.6 parts per billion. That's the combined 5 wells from the south well field. Okay? Those 9 wells added together is the third chart in, which is at 10.7 parts per billion of TCE. That's the amount of TCE entering the advanced oxidation process treatment plant. Okay? So that's the water coming in at 10.7 parts per billion of TCE. Remember, the consent decree limit is 1.5 parts per billion. All All right? The two graphs to the left, to the right, shows that after this water flows through the advanced oxidation process, all TCE is removed to below our method reporting limit, which is at 0.5 parts per billion. Okay, so this treatment plant works extremely well for TCE removal. Okay? So, this looks very similar, but this is about 1,4-dioxane removal in the same treatment plant. So again, far left, you have the concentration of 1,4-dioxane from the 4 North Wellfield wells, which is at 0.6 parts per billion. The South Wellfield, the combined 5 wells, that concentration of 1,4-dioxane is at 4.6 parts per billion. Those together, that flow together coming into the AOP treatment plant is 1.4 parts per billion. Again, the current EPA drinking water health advisory is at 0.35 parts per billion. Okay, so the water coming in is at 1.4. So the two charts on the right shows that they are below the method reported limit, which is at 0.1 parts per billion. Okay, and I should have said before, and I apologize, the green line that goes across that's at the 3 parts per billion, that was the EPA drinking water health advisory up until 2011. The solid red line down below the solid is the existing current drinking water health advisory from EPA, which is at 0.35 parts per billion. And then the dashed line is the method reported limit. So we are delivering water from the advanced oxidation process that shows no detection limit of both 1,4-dioxane and TCE. And that water, again, is then sent to 60,000 people in that V shape in basically downtown Tucson, up Silver Bell, up First, and Oracle Road. So again, that just shows how effective this treatment technology works for both 1,4-dioxane and TCE. So in summary, since November of 1994, when TARP was started, we've remediated 48 billion gallons of water from the contaminated plume. We've removed over 5,300 pounds of TCE during that time. We've had significant decreases of TCE contamination and 1,4-dioxane contamination in the existing 9 remediation wells. So the process is working. Okay, it's remediating the groundwater. It may be slow for what the community wants, but it is working. It's removing the contaminated groundwater, and then we're delivering safe water to the public. So what are the next steps? One is there's going to be an amendment to the record of decision. That sounds really scary. And what it is, I talked before about the existing record of decision, which is solely about removal of TCE, okay, and the remedial action was the TARP treatment plant, the air stripper, okay. This amendment to the record of decision has 2 parts to it. One is that besides TCE, they're going to now enforce through a consent decree 1,4-dioxane cleanup. You've got to remember, since 2002, except for a small, short time, Tucson Water, our ratepayers, have been paying to remove 1,4-dioxane. Now, we recently did get a check from the United States Air Force for just about almost $17 million for that capital cost, but we're still paying every year that O&M cost, which is about $1 million. That's coming out of our ratepayers' pocket. Okay, so this consent decree, this record of decision, will help mediate that. There'll be another trust fund that the settling parties will put money into. That trust fund will then pay Tucson Water to treat water for 1,4-dioxane, and our customers will get reimbursed for it. That we won't have to pay for it again. The second part of this amendment is that, you know how I explained that the existing TARP treatment plant, once the water goes through the new advanced oxidation process treatment plant, it comes out safe, no dioxane, no TCE, and it just flows through the existing TARP treatment plant because of the consent decree. The second part of this record of decision will ask for the existing TARP treatment plant to be retired. It's not necessary anymore because of how the AOP treatment plant works. It removes TCE to below detection level. So it's just an added cost right now that we have to pay for that's not necessary. EPA currently has a comment period right now on some of these discussions. I certainly encourage everyone to look at their proposed plan. There's 6 alternatives. Study them, ask questions, and comment on them. All right? Because that's how it works. We get feedback from our community. All right? But EPA will make that final decision on what alternative they will use. Not Tucson Water, not the city of Tucson, not our community, but we all have a say in it. Okay, and a strong say in it, I think. We'll continue the cleanup until it's done. And I know I don't have a third bullet on there, but I think it's very, very important. We will continue our outreach to individuals like yourself and this group here. And I am up to the task of meeting any time, any place, any group that wants to talk about this, because it's that important to the city of Tucson and to me personally. I've taken this on. I care about this a lot. So I want to make sure everyone understands, and I've got some business cards. If you have a group that you feel they need to talk to me, contact me. I will do it in a heartbeat. Okay? That's how important this is to this community. A couple outreach other than tonight. I did talk to our mayor and council this afternoon about this. On Thursday, I will be meeting with Dr. Francisco Garcia, Chief Medical Officer for Pima County Health Department, talk about how we can work together, what else is going on. And also this Saturday, the 13th, day before Mother's Day. Everyone remember that, okay? Mothers are important. There's going to be a tour that is sponsored by Ward 1 and Ward 5. The Tucson Water will be giving. That tour will go out to our Hayden Udall treatment plant where we have our laboratory. I think it's very important for our public to look at how our laboratory analyzes the water and looks at what we do every day and every year. The water that comes out of TARP is analyzed more than any other water in this city. Every day we analyze water coming out of that treatment plant to make sure that that plant runs correctly. So we'll have a tour. They'll go out to the lab, see people hopefully in white coats doing stuff, looking at their equipment. From there we'll go to the TARP AOP treatment facility. I'll give a tour of that because I think I can talk all day long and a lot of that just goes over people's heads. You got to see what we do in the lab to make sure the water's safe and then look at the technology. And once you see both those, it clicks. It all comes together. So I encourage people to contact us to give tours. We do that all the time also. So with that, if the governing board has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Ms. Dong?
Thank you. First of all, it's a little awkward here because we have our microphones a little bit different than we normally have them. But first of all, Mr. Biggs, I really want to thank you for coming here tonight and explaining to us all the different processes of what has occurred. I've seen you in a couple of different places and presentations, so I know that you are more than willing to come out and talk to the community and talk to the public as far as what has happened, the history, and also what is occurring right now. So I want to thank you, and I also want to thank the City Council because when you went to them with this, they didn't miss a beat. They went ahead and quickly put the money in themselves that we needed to go ahead and quickly do whatever we needed to do to start to remedy the situation. I had a couple of other things really quickly here. First of all, I want to really thank you for getting on board quickly because when we first had this issue happen, well, as you know, our water started getting contaminated in the 1940s. We didn't really know very much about it until the 80s. So 40 years of us, of our parents, our grandparents, and ourselves, and our children and grandchildren being affected by what had happened in the past there. In 1994, we finally had something in place, something operational to start cleaning our water since 1940 to 1994. But since 1981, when it was detected to 1994, that was 13 years when we still had to deal with this before something was put into place. But when we found out about the dioxin in 2002, it was detected, and you started right away in 2003 blending the waters. And you did what you could with the information that you had. EPA had a much higher amount of what we should be drinking of the dioxin at the time. And unfortunately, from 2002 until they realized, whoops, we made a mistake and it's much lower than it is, you did what you could. You blended the water and did what you could. Unfortunately, we know now that that wasn't enough, that as much as you tried, that wasn't going to be sufficient to keep our waters to the level that we needed to have them without having it be something that would be affecting our health. And in 2011, the EPA published its new decisions as to what the amount should be. And then in 2013, you started construction. So once again, you jumped on it. You realized what you were doing was not going to be enough, and you jumped on it and started to work on it. So for all of that, I do truly thank you. Unfortunately, we have it in our waters. We've had it in our waters, and it has already started to affect many of our community members, on top of the TCE that has affected it in the past. And so that's what I think is a huge part of my concern right now. I know that supposedly right now, the amount of water, you have to drink 2 glasses for 70 years in order, but at the same time, we aren't just drinking the water, and we're being told by our doctors to drink more than 2 glasses of water a day. But also, we're not just drinking the water, we're bathing in it, we're taking showers, we're bathing our infants in the water. We're using it to water our gardens and grow our tomatoes and our zucchinis and those kind of things. So unfortunately, we have to be very, very careful as to what we do, how we approach making sure that our waters are clean, because it's not just a matter of drinking a couple of glasses of water a day. But one of the things that I guess what really concerns me, first of all, one of the things that's on your slide is talking about a health advisory. The EPA is a health advisory. So if the EPA is a health advisory, who are the ones that are making the final decisions as to which of those plans? Is it the EPA, or is it all of us? Especially, is it the city of Tucson, the city council? Is it the Tucson Water, yourself? As far as making the decision as to which of those plans that they have given us are the plans that we go with here in Tucson?
Sure. I'd like to respond to that. It is certainly the EPA's decision. It's their final decision. What EPA will do is what I hope they will do and what they have said they will do. They will listen to the community. During this comment period, they will listen to the city of Tucson, Tucson Water, but listen to everybody about what our concerns are and what alternative we think might be best for the community. And all those alternatives will eventually clean up the contaminant. Some quicker, some longer, some more expensive long-term, some more expensive short-term. But the bottom line is, after they receive all the comments from everyone, they will make that final decision. When I say they, United States EPA.
Okay, that's one of the concerns that I had, was that very, very few people in the community knew that EPA meeting was even going to happen, that they were going to come and talk to the community about the issue and talk to the community about the solutions and give us those different plans. There were very few people in that meeting. I just happened to have found out about it myself, like that morning of that meeting. And I had something else, but I still knew that it was important, so I went to listen to what they had to say and to at least get an idea. But when I was there, I saw that there was, maybe 50 people in the community there, and not anymore, and some of those were actual workers for EPA and stuff like, and yourselves. But, I feel very concerned that I don't feel like we were given very much of a chance to put it out there to the community that this was happening. Everybody that I talked to, no one got a notice in their mailbox that they were even going to be here in town. And my other concern is that now that we know that this is occurring, now that we know we have choices, I've asked if they could come down here to explain it one more time to the larger part of the community that also is worried and scared, and rightly so, because of our history here, and is wanting to know. They want to be educated, but there doesn't seem to be anybody around to educate us. There doesn't seem to be anybody around to really give us, what this means. What do these plans mean? And for myself, being there that day, I asked the plan that they wanted, which is number 3, or the one that they're suggesting, number 3. I know is one of the cheaper ones as far as cost. And I asked about numbers 5 and 6 at the time. I thought seemed better when I was reading just a little bit that they explained. And they said, yeah, and they said, well, 5 and 6 will take longer because they have to dig more holes. But I asked if at the end of the day, will it clean up our water faster? Because we have been dealing with this stuff for almost 100 years here. And so I wanted something that was going to work faster at the end of the day. And they said yes, that the other ones would work faster, but that it was going to be A, more costly, and B, they would have to dig more wells. It might take more time to get it going. But to be honest with you, as a community member here, it might take a little longer, but if it's going to stop the pollution that's in the water now, I would prefer that one. But, I was one of the few people that was there to even hear it. And if I now have technical questions, because I've been reading it a lot more and talking to people, I don't really feel like I have anybody to ask those technical questions. So when the community comes and asks me questions, I say, this is what I'm thinking, but I'm not sure about 5 and 6, 4, 5, and 6. And this is what they want, which is number 3. How can we get more information? We only have till, the 21st?
Yeah.
And that's next week. And so, I know we got an extension. Congressman Grijalva was able to give us extra 30 days. And when I was happy to get those extra 30 days, but it doesn't do us very much good if in those 30 days we still don't get the answers to the education that the community needs. And I know that you and the City Council would like to put our minds at ease somewhat, that you are doing stuff, and I do appreciate that. But you can understand, when I go into a meeting about this issue at the casino ballroom, and it's like an incredible meeting, like a reunion from Pueblo High School and Sunnyside High School, until you start to see they're coming in with wheelchairs and walkers, and their faces disfigured from the cancers in their brains and the strokes. We need more answers. We can't just, we need more time to make a decision of how we're going to get this clean for the next 20 years. And I don't know what to do about that. And maybe you can give me some answers. I appreciate you. You're doing so much. Please help me and the community understand what can we do for our grandkids.
Sure, I understand completely. I do. I guess one suggestion would, and I can provide Superintendent Holmes with phone number, the direct number for Mary Aycock, who is the EPA.
She told me she couldn't come because funding is short for her now, and she lives in San Francisco, and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, and then she also stated that she couldn't come because she can't give any information because we're in the public comment. I don't want her opinions necessarily. I just need her education.
Right, you want the facts. And I was going to say is that EPA has a consultant that they use, and that consultant is here in Tucson, the person who worked a lot on this proposed plan. So what I was going to say is if you work through Mary and ask Mark Gardner, who is the consultant, maybe he, and again, I don't know the rules of the public comment period. I'm sorry, I don't know those rules, but I'm just trying to give you some avenues to go down to try to get some answers so you feel more comfortable. That's maybe what I would try to do. Contact Mary, ask if Mark Gardner he's in town. Is there a reason why he can't come and explain these alternatives again? I know at that day he went through it very quickly, and if it's the first time you heard it, it's like gibberish. I understand that. They need to have more time to answer technical questions on the alternatives, okay? And maybe that's the only thing I can suggest right now, is to go that route. And again, you can get Mary's phone number. It's through UCAB, or we can provide it, again, to Superintendent Holmes. Her email address, we can get, and it might be on the proposed plan.
Yeah, it is. I talked to her once
Yeah.
before, but I didn't. I just asked her if she could come.
Right.
And she couldn't.
And I know recently they've extended the budget for the federal government through September 30th, and EPA only took a 1% hit on their budget, which in the big scheme of things, they're not going to lose any staff, things like that. So maybe another phone call now might, explain your concerns. And that I'm sorry, but that's the only thing I can offer up to you. Because we can't, talk to you about this. I mean, I would love to, but this is EPA's responsibility, and they're the ones that need to talk to you about this, or their consultant. I would be happy to be at that meeting if you can arrange that. Absolutely. So keep me in the loop, but that's what I would suggest doing, and do it as quickly as you can. Because you're right, May 21st is coming very, very fast.
Mr. Hallmew.
Mr. Board President, Mr. Biggs, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for being here this evening and for your continued efforts with the water issue that we've had for many, many years in this community. I would like to also thank the City Council for their efforts as well, and the folks that are involved with UCAB. And we can't do it alone, and if we come together and voice ourselves to the powers to be, we could probably make it happen. But I'd like to emphasize it's so important that you take the proposal home with you and share it with your family members, with your colleagues, folks that have worked here in the school district, folks that have worked at Raytheon, folks that have worked at West Cap, Burr Brown, and all the facilities. It becomes an occupational risk as well. Not now, but in the past. And we do need everybody's input. And Mary Acock, his phone number's here, her email address, and without us not speaking up and her not hearing our concerns, it's just not going to happen. But I do want to thank you very, very much, Mr. Biggs, for continually supporting our efforts. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Mr. Quintero.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I very much would like to say thank you for coming out. And I also like the fact that I don't know how many people read their water bills, but they have a fantastic newsletter that goes in the bill, and it tells you all the information every month. You have something that we need to know. And so thank you for that, and thank you for getting the information out on UCAB. I know they only meet quarterly, but those meetings are important, so thank you for helping with that as well.
Well, thank you for reading our newsletter. So at least I can go back to our public information officer and say 1 out of 720,000 people read that. So, thank you.
I'd also like to thank you, Mr. Biggs, for coming and speaking to us. I have a couple of concerns.
Other contaminants that we may have in our water that occurred from the same sources, like nickel, chromium, other metals. What are we doing about those? Are we looking at them, or are they really at such a low level we can't even detect them?
Yeah, right now we have been looking at and tracking chromium-6, hexavalent chromium. If you've ever seen the movie Aaron Brockovich, you know what chromium-6 is. There's chromium-6 that's naturally occurring. We have it at very, very small levels in a lot of our groundwater wells, but at very low levels. But within the tart plume, those levels are higher. So obviously it is coming from past practices, just like TCE and 1,4-dioxane. So we're monitoring that very closely. We're watching to see if there's a trend of an uptick of levels that are going up. We're also tracking any health advisories or maximum contaminant levels. Like the state of California actually has an enforceable maximum contaminant level for Chrome-6 of 10 parts per billion. Okay, 10 parts per billion. Within the tart plume, those 9 remediation wells, there is one well that is around 9 parts per billion. But when I showed you on those charts, you can tell when all the flow comes together, that level it drops down. And the water that we're delivering from TARP for chromium-6 averages about 2.5 parts per billion. So about a fourth of the current California maximum contaminant level. Unfortunately, like 1,4-dioxane, we would need to build an additional treatment plant to remove chromium-6. And we would do that immediately if we see any indication of those levels increasing to where we thought it was going to jeopardize public health. Just like we did with 1,4-dioxane, we would do it with chromium-6 or anything else that might be thrown at us. You can count on that.
The other question I have, Mr. Biggs, is on the EPA. If it were decommissioned, deregulated, if it was defunded, the funding for that's coming to Tucson from the Superfund or from the EPA, what would be our reaction in the city of Tucson?
Well, I can tell you with 100% certainty that regardless of what funding EPA has, we would continue to operate with the existing maximum contaminant levels and health advisories that we're dealing with now. We also have internal standards that we operate off of. So I can guarantee that we would continue with what we're doing now regardless of whether EPA has the funding to enforce any type of water quality regulations. And I think every water utility should do that. That's what we're here for, to protect the public. That's our number one goal. And that's what we do, and that's what I've been doing for over 36 years.
Ms. Quintero.
So, from our environmental services fee, part of that money goes into a fund to maintain the landfill after it closes for 30 years. Mm-hmm. Does Tucson Water do the same thing to put money away to take care of the wells and stuff like that if EPA funding was to go away?
Yeah, like I explained earlier, we do have a capital improvement program budget every year of anywhere from $55 to $65 million for infrastructure replacement. We also have an operating budget, that we utilize to maintain all of our equipment, pay our employees, do the analytical work. So again, we would continue to operate like we are today, whether there's an EPA there or not.
Mr. Biggs, again, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the board and our community. This is a very personal issue for almost all of us in the community, all those that either work or live here. And we are going to stay concerned, but we do appreciate your concise answers. And thank you very much.
My pleasure. And I think two things. Transparency is everything, and working together. And secondly, I would be more than happy to stick around, after the meeting or now out in the lobby, talk to anyone who has any questions, because I know they can't ask me these questions now. But I can stay around and answer any questions that people might have, and I can leave some business cards also. So with that, thank you very much. I really, truly appreciate the opportunity.
Next item on the agenda is parents and teachers. And Dr. Pavella.
Good evening, President Crouch, members of the board, and Superintendent Holmes. We have tonight with us our own Joan Katz, longtime coordinator of the Parents as Teachers program. You saw the webinar. There was a webinar that she had prepared, and so you've had an opportunity to have the background. But she's here to share some success stories and to answer any questions you might have, and also Dr. Dawson is in the audience if you have any specific questions. So I'm going to turn this over to Joan Katz.
Members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Holmes, I want to thank you so much for your continued support of the Parents as Teachers program. And I want to share a couple of stories that I think address the value add of this program and the positive impact that it has on the 350 and over 407 children that are currently enrolled in the program. Last week, Sunnyside Parents as Teachers participated in the second of a four-part series on what organizations, school districts, nonprofits were doing across the country in terms of their approach to grade level reading. And Sunnyside Parents as Teachers participated with two other organizations and addressed their approach concerning kindergarten readiness and attendance and what we were doing in Tucson's efforts towards grade level reading. So during this webinar, they asked four specific questions. The first question that they asked was, how does Sunnyside School District integrate the PAT model into the district and focus this approach on grade level reading? And why does Sunnyside embrace this approach, this model? So the first thing that I spoke to was the district's commitment to parent engagement, because the district knows that when parents are involved in their child's education early on, they stay involved in their child's education, and that the children whose parents are involved tend to stay in school, graduate, continue and go on, have a further education, and become productive members of our community. The second part was why the Parents as Teachers model. And I expressed to them that Sunnyside School District's commitment to parent engagement has really wanted to focus on an intense program, a program that went into the home and met parents where they spend most of their time. They wanted a research-based program, and they wanted a program with proven positive outcomes for children and families. The next part of the series of questions addressed what adaptations that the program has made to the model in order to meet the needs of the children and families in our community, and then how did we measure the outcomes, whether we were actually making a difference for children and families. So I addressed on the webinar some of the adaptations that we have made to the program. The fact that we have a reading incentive program, and that program consists of parents completing a reading log stating that they've read so many books to their very young children. And then the parents receive free books for their children. And this year, we've given out over 350 books to our families so they can start an in-home library for their children. We've also included in that, we have given out over 160 books to kindergartners at Summit View Elementary School through our Reading Incentive Program. We also engage fathers in their child's education because it's really important that dads understand the critical role that they play in their child's education. And we know that when dads are involved in their child's education, that children stay in school, they graduate, they have better peer relations, and believe it or not, they score higher on tests of cognitive skills. We also made some adaptations in terms of our group connections by offering a performing arts series. So we have the symphony that comes 8 times a year to Los Niños Elementary School and performs for our parents as teachers' families, as well as for Los Niños kindergarten children. We also have a art teacher who comes and works with our families and then goes out to Summit View and works with the kindergarten children at Summit View. We also have a music and movement teacher, as well as a teacher who specializes in sensory exploration. And these are all additional services that we provide for our families, and they're things that our families would never be able to access on their own. And all this is brought to them through a grant that we have with the Stone Canyon Foundation and the Diamond Foundation. We also have made adaptations to our program in terms of the resources and referral process that we have. We have been able to help parents get insurance. We've helped parents write goals for themselves and for their children, because we know that when parents have goals, that they strive to strengthen their family and have a better relationship with all those people who support their children in the learning process. Finally, we also have made adaptations to our screening process. We do developmental screenings, and we screened about 300 children last year, including hearing and vision screens. And we use professionals. We use an audiologist from the University of Arizona, and we use the Lions Club as well as nurses from the district, because we know that these professionals can make a better evaluation, do a better job at evaluating the effectiveness, all of which affect a child's ability to read. Finally, the last question that they wanted to address was, how do we measure the impact of the program on our children and families? And we talked about kindergarten readiness, and that 94% of the PAT children who left our program and entered kindergarten this year were rated by their teachers as having the skills they needed to be successful. I also put in your packet a fact sheet about attendance and how high the attendance rate was in first, second, and third grade for PAT graduates. So we're seeing the positive impact of the program, not just as the students exit the program, but we're also looking at what happens beyond kindergarten and longitudinally what happens to our children in the district. Another story that I wanted to share with you is really with an OBGYN doctor who works at El Rio Clinic. And he is Hispanic. He grew up in South Central LA. He attended Head Start. And he spoke about, he went on a home visit, and he also attended our end of the year celebration, so he was pretty familiar with the program. But he made a very interesting statement to me. He said, you know, Joan, he said, one thing that your program has really done is that you've changed a culture. You are impacting culture. And it doesn't matter how much information you deliver to a family, if you don't change the culture, the information is not going to be used and absorbed and practiced. So I really never thought about it in that respect, but I think he's right. I think the fact that we do have dads involved in the program, where typically mothers did the educating, the fact that we have mothers who are going out and getting jobs and are becoming special ed teachers, and 4 of our parent educators were in the program. The fact that they're getting into the job market is really changing the culture. Another change that is very dramatic is that parents are realizing that they can teach their children long before children enter school, and they can no longer wait until a child enters school to start disciplining them or to start building the skills that they need to read when they get to kindergarten. So that was quite an aha moment, I guess, for me. I wanted to just close by saying a criminologist from the University of Arizona said to me a while back, he said, you know, Joan, what this program does is really important, because if a child doesn't learn respect for their peers, respect for adults, and respect for things in the first 3 years of life, they never learn this. So again, I want to thank you for your support. Because of your support, we've really been able to build the capacity and the sustainability of the program, and to let you know that Sunnyside is known not just locally, not just in this community, but nationally for the positive impact that it has on their students and their families. Thank you. If you have any questions about the PowerPoint, I'd be glad to try to answer them, and if I can't, Dawson can help me.
Ms. Dawn?
Yeah, no, the PowerPoint was great. I enjoyed that, and also the YouTube that we had with that. But I just want to thank you for making us a nationally known program, because it didn't just happen. You know, it was all of your hard work and all the hard work of your teachers that pushed us towards that. And it's not just the fun part of working with the kids and reading to the kids and working with the parents and the moms and the dads, but the hard work that comes along with it, all the paperwork that comes along with it, but especially looking for money. Partners from the universities, different parts of the community. It doesn't just happen overnight. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of hours. And I want to thank you. I mean, I've been impressed with this program since we were housed at the old Mission Manor. And I used to go and hear Dr. Dawson and all of the stats that he had. Even back then, when the program was 3, 4, 5 years old, the statistics that came with it were just incredible. And now we have these kids that made those improvements already. Thank you.
Thank you, John. But of the little ones, how many of them attend our kindergarten, do you know?
This last year, we had 75 attend our kindergartens. This year, we have, I think, 65 that will be attending our kindergartens. We actually aren't graduating as many students because the standards of practice have changed nationally for the program, and what our approach has become has been a more intensified program. So we're visiting families more frequently because we feel that is impacting our data in a positive way, and we'd like to have depth and not just breadth. We want our kids coming and being successful. We want them to stay in school. We want them to be reading at grade level at 3rd grade. And kindergarten readiness is probably one of the most important educational benchmarks in a child's career. So we have, again, adapted the model and intensified our services so that we can make sure that our kids are successful in school.
Thank you.
I also forgot to note during the last session that Mr. Hernandez had joined us. Mr. Hernandez, do you have any questions? Assuming not. Joan, thank you so much, and your program is absolutely fantastic. It's so much fun to go and watch the kids and just watch the way they work. The Dad and Me program is phenomenal. Anyone who's not seen that, it's worth your time to go and watch how the dads are interacting with their children. And so, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the 2016-17 budget revision number 2. Mr. Encinas.
I come before you tonight requesting that you approve revision number 2 to the 2016-17 budget. This budget revision is necessitated as a result of approval by the state board of our Move On When Reading program and some minor revisions to the ADM. In summary, basically, the MO revision amounts to an increase of $899,060. Of that $899,000, we adopted a budget with zero budget for that program, have expended money during the course of the year anticipating approval, and we got the approval now. So is going to be going to the reading program. The other amount is been almost just, we looked at our projected expenditures and just revised some various items to priorities in areas we think we need money for that line item. Under unrestricted capital, there was an increase of $61,900. As the governing board is aware, with the state's district additional assistance adjustment, the $8 million formula that we would have in terms of capital was reduced down to about $900,000 by the state. So $61,900 basically going toward capital outlay to allow us to have a budget of $1.7 million, almost $1.8 million, of which close to $800,000 was carried forward from last year. And then lastly, the major issue is the classroom site fund, which is the Prop 301 monies. As we know, this fund bucket number 1 and bucket number 3 are the compensation for teachers. In addition, remind the governing board that the recent legislation passed by the state legislature does not have any provisions for next year's funding, and that we will no longer be able to experience a grace period like we did this year, specifically this year's budget based on last year's $81,000. We actually are experiencing a quarterly run around $15,000. Next year we'll have to have a budget funded on current year enrollment, which is about 15.2. So that's a projected decrease of 625 kids. Cognizant of the fact that programs, we have to be very tight with our programs, no expansion. I don't foresee any expansion of programs, and really oversee our expenditures very, very tight. But with that being said, unless you have any questions, I would ask the governing board to approve revision number 2 to the 2016-17 budget.
Mr. Holmes?
Mr. Encinas, just briefly, can you explain to the general public how the function of receiving this funding so late? Because I want to make sure it's clear that monies are being spent out of that budget line currently for K-3.
Yes, sir.
But can you explain a little bit how that works? Because money's coming in this late in the year.
So next year we will, because we said 15,000, but what happens to the rest of that money?
No, if we will be funded on actual enrollment. So in essence, we're projecting 15,200 kids that we'll have next year. If our enrollment during the course of the year reflects that we have an increase in enrollment, we'll get that funding for those students then next year. So we'll increase our budget. Say we adopt a budget based on 15.2 projection. So we realize that an actual enrollment of 15.6, we'll increase our budget to reflect 15.6 students.
Okay, so we won't have to wait a year?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good, thank you.
Of course, the other way around too. If we projected for 15.2 and we only see 15,000, they'll make us reduce it down to 15,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Ms. Dahm?
I move that we approve the 2016-2017 budget revision number 2 as presented.
Second.
Roll call?
Yes.
Aye. Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Encinas.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is approval to exceed subsessions of the FY 16-17 maintenance and operations budget. Mr. Zenas.
Thank you, Mr. Crouch, Board Member, Superintendent. You just approved revision number 2, and that's our best guess in terms of how we're going to spend our money under the M&O. And if you look at the budget, there's a regular education over 100, special education 200, and then transportation 400. And under each one of those is a subsection. And we budgeted X number of dollars for each subsection. If we happen to overexpend, let's say, in transportation, okay, the amount that you approved today, without your approval tonight, okay, if we had overexpended, we will not be able to cover that over expenditure from under expenditures under section 100 or 200. So basically, this is just an annual request to allow the district to be able to cover any over expenditure in a subsection from an under expenditure in another subsection, so long as the total budget isn't over expended. So that's the request.
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Holmes might want to translate extra easy to English, I don't know.
Ms. Dunn?
I move that the governing board authorize the expenditures of monies budgeted within the maintenance operations section of the budget for any subsection within the section of in excess of amounts specified in the expenditure for all
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Substitutes for 2017-2018 school year. Dr. Berger?
Good evening, President Crouch, and members of the audience. Ms. Ensley and I are going to present to you some information on substitutes. It was dropped in last Thursday. The opportunity to go through and work through it, and we're going to go through it. And please let us know if you have questions and stop us whenever you need us to stop. So the purpose tonight is to review two major concerns that we have in human resources about continuing an in-house substitute pool, as well as I want to review with you the substitute costs, provide a timeline of the events that we've been investigating since December, and bring that discussion forward to educate you on it, and also just share with you what ESI can do to help support us in this process. The two concerns that we're looking at, and you've been when they work 30 hours over a period of a year, which our long-term subs do, we have to offer them benefits, and we have to make sure we do it in a manner which is in a time frame. Then 30 hours an individual works as a sub. And this is not just in, our district, it's across the board, but districts pull from a outside to help us with that, to make sure that we have a budget of about $1 million that we look at. Who work for us throughout the year. There are 60 of them who pretty much are whether filled short-term needs, somebody who may have to be out for surgery or various reasons. And then we have just one of education. That group is somebody who retired from that side, and they have allegiance to it. Within the ASOP started they start along. After that 20th day, they hop up to 125. And we did have some permanent substitutes. We kind of raised it down to this for our high school, but $125 a day as well. We're compared to other districts in the Tucson area. In fact, sometimes we pay a little bit better. Analysis of how substitutes are paid across the district, as you can see, we're comparable to AMPI, Moran, Catalina Foothills, and TUSD. Our AMPI, that's the daily rate. And then that daily rate after 20 days is very similar. Long-term subs, attract, especially for those hard to fill Mondays and Fridays. And then the Hills does the same. They have a little bit higher rate for Fridays because, as you know, those are high. So with that language and what we have to do with benefits, and I started communicating with other agent leadership together and started talking about what is it going to look like for you next year? What are you talking about? What are we doing now? How we hosted the first meeting, and the districts came together and sent at least 2 people and started talking about the pros and cons of contracting out for substitutes or forming a collaborative consortium where we come together and maybe work as a Tucson area consortium, because there are smaller districts in the state of Arizona who are doing that. We, at that time, shared our salaries. I mean, we just laid everything out on the table and just started talking about basically moved away from the thought about forming a consortium because we needed to stay competitive. One of the things I think we discovered in this discussion was that Sunnyside stays competitive because of our size, and we have very dedicated and they work for us for various reasons. They live in the area, or they want to, they like our community, or they found some component within our culture that attracts them to us, and we want to be able to maintain them. If we had done the consortium, it would have detracted from that, and we really didn't want to lose it. So the decision was to move away from the idea of a consortium, but then individually talk to our school boards about the thoughts and what we have learned over the last few months about contracting or staying with an in-house pool, and educating our boards about the why. Why are we thinking about this, and what it is that we want to talk to you about and get your input as well about moving forward. Right now, several districts have already decided to move forward, and as I shared, their contract to USD Canada, Foothills, Sahuarita, they are moving forward and have decided to go with either ESI or Smart Schools Plus. The following districts, Marana and Vail, are doing the same thing I'm doing tonight with you with Ms. Emsley, is talking about, you know, should we or should we not, or, you know, what do you think? What do you think about this? And then we have 3 other Tucson area districts who have decided just to keep their in-house pool and see how it goes for the next year. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Emsley, right? Mm-hmm. And she's going to finish the discussion.
Hello, Mr. Crouch, Governing Board members, Superintendent Holmes. Thank you for the time that you've given us today to talk about this new and exciting frontier that we're looking at with Prop 206 and the Affordable Care Act. As Dr. Bergman stated earlier, we do have some challenges that we're facing. For the last year, we have faced the Affordable Care Act challenge of ensuring that all of our substitutes who work 30 hours and more are covered by health insurance. That is one of the primary duties that our substitute coordinator has been working on over the last year with the Affordable Care Act. We also now will be tracking the sick leave accruals as per the Prop 206 that was passed recently, effective July 1. And then also we are consistently trying to recruit and increase our substitute pool. We typically have about 175 to a 200 person substitute pool at any given time. We would like to see that much larger. Obviously, it would help our fill rates to have a larger pool. However, at this point in time, we have seen that number stays pretty consistent, about 175 to 200. Currently, we work with ESI, and they are quite, they work very well with us on our retirees and different populations of employees that we have that come back to work with us. We noticed that when they did their presentation for us in the meeting that we had with the other school districts, they definitely had the capacity to handle this type of situation if we were looking at contracting out for our substitutes. They have the infrastructure that is built for this type of process. They already have a large pool of substitutes available as they have been working with another school district in town over the past year. So again, they are ready to move and deploy this system. They have the ASOP user license, which is extremely important because they would work directly with us on contracting out and placing our substitutes. They would also work with us on recruiting. They have an office in Minnesota that handles recruiting in the state of Minnesota to try to bring substitutes to Arizona. They do all of their own online onboarding as well as a very robust professional development program for their substitutes that then would be working with Sunnyside. I think that something that's very key in this process in the event that the decision is made to move forward with this is that Sunnyside definitely believes, and I know this comes from Dr. Bergman as well as myself, that our substitutes, we don't want them to feel as though they are not our substitutes anymore. Really, truly, what we'd like to see is just their paycheck coming from ESI. Their professional development, even though it could be coming from ASOP, we would partner with ASOP throughout the whole process of offering the professional development, of onboarding the employee, working with coordinating placement of the substitutes in the schools with our substitute coordinator. So we would like to see the process be as seamless as possible for our substitutes and keep them feeling like they are Sunnyside substitutes, because we know that's why they work with us. So finally, just to reiterate that there is the ACA compliance, as well as the Prop 206 language, as well as the workers' compensation and unemployment, and then finally, ESI does handle the discipline and any other sort of more sensitive issues that might arise when we have issues or any potential challenges with any of our substitutes. So they do handle all of these things with ESI. Benefits package for all of our substitutes, that measurement period for the ACA, and they also have plans in place to implement the Prop 206. We do not plan on altering the rates first. And the ACA compliance, as well as Prop 206. All of those items have inherent costs attributed to them. For example, the ACA compliance, we provide district contribution to any substitute who enrolls in medical insurance with the district, and so that is an inherent cost in continuing to maintain substitutes with the district. Also, any substitute who works over the 2020 rule for Arizona State retirement, the district needs to contribute 11.5% for those substitutes also. So that, again, is another inherent cost. And then finally, the Prop 206, accruing 1 hour of paid time off for every 30 hours worked. Not only is that a cost in and of itself, however, there is an additional cost in who is going to maintain that information, how we are going to track that information, et cetera. So at the very bottom bullet there, ESI does estimate that the 10% fee that they are quoting us would really be reduced down to approximately a 2% fee, and there could be even a potential savings depending on how much these other items have cost us in the past. So regarding next steps, in the event that a substitutes, we would work with ESI to notify our current pool of substitutes and work with them on how we can onboard them with ESI. And as recruiting and trying to build our substitute pool. And then if we decide to keep our substitutes in, then we would need to identify a system to track their insurance eligibility through the Affordable Care Act. As you all know, we are moving towards a new ERP system, so we're looking at hopefully being able to do that within that ERP system, and as well as tracking the accrued sick leave out of the Prop 206. And then finally, continuing to build a larger pool of substitutes. We are hoping to continue to do that with either option that moves forward. So at this point in time, are there any questions for Dr. Bergman or I?
Ms. Dahl?
Yes, I have a few questions here. Can you hear me if I just sit like that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Very loud.
Makes it a little bit easier for me.
Loud on this
Yes.
side.
I had a couple of concerns about this. One of them, I know that our employees do ESI and they benefit greatly from ESI because they've already got their points and such. They're getting their ASRS check, and then they're getting an ESI check, and that is great for them, and that's a choice that they personally make at a particular point in their lives. They don't do it because we told them, okay, now you're such and such an age, or you got such and such points, so now you're going to go ESI. This is something that they do by choice. This ESI, I don't see, first of all, a couple things. I don't see that that it is beneficial to the employee, the substitute. I realize that there are some benefits to the district, but there are no benefits to the employee, and as a matter of fact, and the downfall that I see for our employees that are substitutes, the major one is the ASRS, because they've been working for us, and they've been trying to accumulate some type of retirement for the future, and that is ASRS. And if we do this, we will cut them off from ASRS. If I'm not mistaken, when you go ESI, you no longer contribute to ASRS unless we will cut them from ASRS. So I have a couple of questions on that. First of all, how many of our substitutes, more or less, we have right now about 195, I think, is kind of about where we're at. Of those, how many of them are what we would call long-term subs?
Okay, I knew you were going to ask that, Ms. Dawn. So I came prepared with the answer. Out of our about 195 substitutes, we have 69 individuals who contribute to ASRS. And of those 69, 9 of them are classified employees, and then 60 of them are certified employees. 44 of those 60 are long-term subs who work for us on a yearly basis and contribute to ASRS. Yeah, well, you know what I mean, Arizona State Retirement. And then the 16 are the day-to-day. Even though they may not take a long-term position, they contribute on a regular basis because they probably work.
They come along
almost every day. They may be at different sites, they may be doing different grade levels, but they come almost every day for us. So totally we have 69 individuals who currently participate in the ASRS program and contribute, and then we contribute as well.
Okay. Of the estimated 195, how many would you guess were our past teachers or classified workers and retired but have come back loyally to do long-term subbing or day-to-day subbing, most often at their sites, but still?
Maybe about 20%. Because about 20% of our subs, perhaps, because I want the individuals who went out on BURP, who qualified to sub, especially our certified individuals, they participate in the substitute program. And a lot of them who didn't do their 30 days and sub for us will continue to sub for us in various capacities, whether it's 1 or 2 days a week, or we have some who will come on Mondays and Fridays for us, especially those who are assigned to sites who like to go to a certain site because they're retired from. So it's more our BURP employees who are still working for us in that 5-year span of time that they give back.
As far as the pay is concerned, but we would be paying our company, so we would be paying any ASRS or any insurance for these employees. Now, will the employees, they're not getting any ASRS, but are they going to be, I think by law they have to get benefits from ESI?
As long as they meet the requirements of the Affordable Care Act, which there's a measurement period, and if they work 30 or more hours within that measurement period, then ESI is mandated to offer them benefits. And ESI does have their own employee benefit program that's available to substitutes, retirees, pretty much anybody who's employed by ESI.
Now, when I saw the TUSD, it says $100 minus $8, which equals $92. What's the $8 fee amount?
That's the fee that's for ESI for administering the program.
Okay, so will our employees be paying a fee?
No, the actual amount that the employee earns at TUSD is the $92. That's what they earn.
We're not going to
So-
do minus $8 or anything like
Correct.
that.
That's correct. Yes. What TUSD pays ESI is $100. So the employee receives 92 of that.
Now, I saw that, I think it was Saurita that went with somebody other than ESI. Do you know why?
Yeah, well, kind of. They chose to go with Smart Schools Plus. They have a smaller pool, and they contract with them for their retirees. So they decided just to continue and do their outsourcing for substitutes with them as well, because they're already working with them for their retirees and bringing back their post-doc.
Now, I've heard through the grapevine that there might be real soon here a new tracking system that the state is coming. Could you explain, talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's not the state. You know, we have a new EAP system, iVisions, and one of the things that
Oh, Visions is our new...
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. One of the things I was trying to, whenever I come to you all, I try to think about what are they going to ask and what do I need to be prepared with. And so one of the things Ms. Emsley and I asked our trainers is what's happening across the state, since so many of the districts do have visions. Are they asking you the question we're asking you about what can you do to help us and support us in tracking the information for Prop 206? And what do you have built in already for us to deal with tracking for benefits as well? Because everybody is doing it differently. And the concern I have is the consistency behind what it is we need to do to be able to offer it in that time frame and not go beyond it. Because we can be penalized if we don't stay within this amount of time and offer it to them. Now, they can always deny, and that's fine, but we have to be able to be very timely about it. So they sent us a ton of information because they are now working on trying to develop a system and a program that will not come out till July 1, specifically for Arizona because of Prop 206. And so we got inundated with all this information about what it is that they're trying to do, which was helpful to me and kind of helped ease my mind. But my concern is that's July 1, and we have to figure out how to use it and put it in place before school starts August 2nd. So it would be a crunch, but at least we know there's something out there that may be able to support us.
Okay, and I guess the last comment is a comment, more than a question, is that I am concerned about our loyal long-term subs and our other subs that don't maybe do take a long-term but are here almost every single day, and their loss of their retirement, the ASRS, and what gets paid into their ASRS for their future. So I am concerned about them and about the loyalty that they have given this district. The amount of people, like you said, come here. They don't, try to sub anyplace else, but they try to sub here only.
True.
And I'm afraid, of how will this affect them? How will they feel about it? Will they still feel like, they're, we're saying we're going to try to make them feel like they're Sunnyside, but they're not going to be able to say they're Sunnyside employees, they're ESI employees. But mainly, that ASRS, I'm glad we're keeping the pay, but, I think we need to take a little bit closer look, especially if there is a possibility that we will be having an opportunity to have a different tracking system, because I do understand that it is time-consuming, paperwork-wise and data-wise and everything. It's extremely time-consuming. But if we are possibly going to be able to get a tracking system for vision, and we don't have to do anything as far as our substitutes are concerned, I think that's it's not an action item. Because we continue to look into this, our employees that are having right now state retirement and our loyal Sunnyside.
And we can look at various options, because one of the things we talked about as well is, well, do we look at our long-terms who are committed to us and who have been with us in a long-term position for the last 2 years who want to stay on the Arizona State retirement system. Do we look at that group and keep them? And then, looking at various ways or options that will help us, for tracking and ensuring that they're getting what they need. One of the interesting things that we found out in the last year is that, even though they're offered, we only have 11 individuals who've elected the medical. We have 15 who elected dental, and we have 10 who have elected vision. And so they're not jumping, but we still have to offer it. And we have to offer it within a specific time period.
One of the things when we went and outsourced our food service, which was very difficult for me to do, at the time I understood, was that we worked very tightly with the food service that we were going to outsource with, and we had them do special things for us. Those employees that wanted to stay Sunnyside employees, even though they were going to work for that food service, were able to stay Sunnyside employees until their retirement and things like that. They were able to continue to still get the positions of leadership, management in that company, but still, make some choices by themselves. And right now, I know that there's only maybe a handful of those that are still left, because little by little,
it's getting very small.
Yeah, right, exactly.
They're retiring.
But it was, I think, important to work with employees, especially the ones that have been there for so long and had been getting that ASRS through Sunnyside, in order for them to continue to do that. But I appreciate all the time. You have put a lot of time, a lot of effort into taking a look at this. I know substitutes are a difficult challenge for us, even before those propositions of legislatures came.
Oh, yeah. New things keep
Unfortunately,
popping up, yes.
absenteeism, we've never been able to get a handle on it. We've tried so many variety of things, but we just can't get a handle on absenteeism unless difficult substitutes. And I don't think I want to go into anything of let's try this, let's try that, we've tried it all. But I appreciate all the time that you have put into this. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for the time tonight.
Mr. Holmes.
Dr. Bergman and Ms. Emsley, can you run an analysis for the governing board that we can send on a Friday report regarding the impact of the proposal for certification now that the governor has approved an alternative certification plan? The impact of our long-term subs, does that have any impact on those individuals, and does that change the dynamic of the number of long-term subs that we have? So if you can run analysis with the current long-term subs and just see if that number changes as a result of that.
We can do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the agenda is 2017-2018 calendar update. Dr. Burton.
Good evening, President Crouch, members of the board, Superintendent Holmes, audience. Calendar update. I'm bringing forward tonight an update on the calendar for 2017-18. As you know, you approved the calendar in November, and we were moving forward with it. But I specifically because with our population and the culture we service and the individuals who work for us, I knew our absenteeism was going to be high, and I was correct. Our 2017 Good Friday absences were very high. We had 156 certified employees who called in. 121 classrooms were filled, but 40 classrooms were unfilled, and that's extremely high for us. Typically, on a Monday or Friday, Friday being the highest, that was like a third more than we normally have. We had 141 classified who were not here, 15 professional non-teaching, and 4 administrators. So we had a total of 316 employees who were not here on Good Friday. And so our attendance rate dropped to 67.7%. And because of the came out, decided to bring forward and talk to Mr. Holmes about looking at the 17-18 calendar, because again, Good Friday was not going to be a day off for our employees. So meeting with SEA, SCEA, and SAW, I met with the three association presidents, and we reviewed possible options that we could bring forward for you so that we wouldn't see the same type of absenteeism next year. And believe me, we brainstormed various different ways that we could look at this, and I think tonight is the one that we feel would work the best. And what we want to bring forward tonight is to adjust the 2017-18 calendar. And Ms. Miller provided for you 2 copies of that calendar so you could kind of look at it as we walk through it. So because I know I'm very visual, and so it's easier if you could see. And if you could look on the calendar that we currently have, you'll notice that March 16th is an in-service records day. It's colored green right now. And what we are proposing is that March 16th become a regular school day, and we move that in-service records day to the 19th, which is the Monday of the spring break. And that would become the in-service and records day for our employees. And we have a full week between the 12th and the 16th. They come to work on the 19th, and we have a 4-day spring break. We return on Monday, March 26th, and on Friday, March 30th, we identify that as a holiday for Good Friday. And so we do not see what we saw happen this last year with the absentee rates. And then we leave Cesar Chavez Day on Monday, April 12th as the non-contract day as it's identified now. And if you look at the calendar, it's been updated so you can see how the changes have been made. The 19th is now green, the 30th is yellow, and then the non-contract day on the 2nd.
Board have any comments? Ms. Don?
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Encinas wanted me to clarify. It's not a holiday, Good Friday. We're just breaking up the spring break. Yeah, it's not observance, but we're moving it to the 30th.
Just a really quick question. I mean, you guys thought it all out, and thank you for this other one. I was looking at this yesterday,
and you needed
it was
another
just like-
visual. I know.
I needed a visual. I mean, I
Yeah.
was trying to get those words onto this, but I'm glad that you have it on here now.
Yeah.
But just a quick question. I'll go with this because you guys have all vetted it out and stuff. But I was just curious why we have the 19th through the 23rd or the 20th through the 23rd yellow, and not the 26th through the 30th.
That's a good question. We originally had identified the 19th to the 23rd as the spring break, and instead of changing the whole week, it was I think less evasive to just do one day and make that change this year, because this has been out since November. Families have seen it, making plans. So if we just do one day, and it doesn't really, they're going to come to school on the 16th, but then they will be off the whole week, and then be off also on the 30th.
Yes,
That makes sense?
Yes, it makes sense now, yeah. It has been out, and people have their vacation plans and stuff like that, so now it makes sense. I just didn't understand why we were
Yes.
cutting it here, cutting it there, cutting
Well,
it there.
and
But
we-
now that you've explained what you explained about, this has been out and people have been seeing it, I understand. I just, maybe next year, the 19th, March 19th, or we can do it where it's lot so choppy.
Correct.
But I understand the choppiness
Well,
of this.
let me jump in. This was the recommendation from the calendar committee. So, and that was approved by IBB. So that's a process we used, and it was vetted within. Most of the decision was made to have it that week because of TUSD having their spring break that week, and because a lot of employees and maybe have students in the same. So that was the rationale that was vetted with the calendar committee and then IBB for original approval of those dates. Because now with the quandary of Good Friday, rather than reconvening the calendar committee and going back to a whole nother vetting process, which would take us into the summer, that was a leadership decision was made with executive leadership from SEA, SEA, SAW, and our cabinet level.
Mr. Crouch?
Ms. Dawn?
If there are no further questions, I'll make the motion.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, I'd like to move that the recommendations of the following are approved. The Professional Development Records Day scheduled for Friday, March 16, 2018, be moved to Monday, March 19, 2018. That Friday, March 16, 2018, become a regular school day. That Friday, March 30th, 2018, Good Friday, 2018, become a paid holiday before that other holiday. Okay. That Cesar Chavez Day on Monday, April 2nd, 2018, remains a non-contract day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a request to hold a special governing board meeting. Mr. Holmes?
Yes, President Crouch, members of the governing board. Prior to July 20th, we need to set superintendent's goals that has to be approved by the governing board. There's a certain timeline that it occurs. I'm requesting potentially if the governing board will consider July 11th. We have a board meeting that evening, and so we could potentially have meet as a lunch and work through some goals for lunch and then reconvene at the governing board for approval that day so that we meet the timeline of the 20th. The week before is complicated only by the fact that there's 4th of July and vacation schedules for folks. But so that would be my preference if the governing board would entertain that date and if it's available on your calendars. July 11th.
Any discussion by the board?
What time?
We could have a lunch and then go into a meeting at 1 o'clock.
Is your lunch 11:30 or 12?
We can do lunch, how about 12 o'clock?
Okay.
Someone like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Ms. Quintero?
So I'll make a motion to approve the governing board's recommendation to hold a study session on July 11th at 12 o'clock until we finish.
Board meeting.
To the board meeting.
Second. Somebody second.
Roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is request for executive session. Is there a motion?
Mr. Crouch?
Ms. Dunn?
Okay.
Or Ms. Quintero?
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the board recess into executive session for discussion of personnel pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A1.
Second.
Roll call.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We'll move into executive session. We'll reconvene the meeting. Ms. Quintero.
Mr. Crouch. I move, my chair, I move the governing board approve the appointment of Angelica Valenzuela Encinas, assistant principal at Apollo Middle School for the 2017-2018 school year, and be placed on step A.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez? Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is request for future agenda items. Are there any requests for future agenda items on board? Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is unfinished business. We have one item that was moved from the consent agenda, and it is 3P1 Policy Revisions, JLLC. Dr. Favela, could you speak to the issue, please?
Thank you, Mr. Crouch, governing board members, and Superintendent Holmes. As you know, the way I submit policies to you, this is a policy advisory, and the way it goes is that I prepare those in a Word document because I want you to be able to see what the changes are. And as they said in ASBA, blue is new and red is dead. So if something is crossed out and struck, it means that the policy advisory. So in my ardor, when I prepared this, I accidentally crossed out one too many words, and so the word until should remain. In the previous one that you looked at, the word until, this has to do with the policy about, that adds language about lice. It just says that the student will be excluded until treated. So that's the only change. Otherwise, everything's the same.
Thank you, Dr. Favela. Would someone like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion
Mr. Quintero?
that we include 3P1 policy revisions, JLCC, into the consent? Is that the new language?
With the new language, just
That
the word
includes the word
until should
until.
not have been redlined.
Right. That includes until, should be blue.
Second.
Okay, it should be black.
Should be black.
Okay. Right.
Undo the red line.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Crouch,
Yes.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Strong?
Yes.
Mr. Jaramillo?
Yes.
Ms. Quintero?
Aye.
Mr. Crouch?
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.